You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den, episode 55 with Julie Steelman. How to access a secret power you don't even know you have to amplify your earnings and your man traction factor. Ladies, welcome your fine asses back into my dating den. This is going to be an awesome show today because I have brought to the den one of the most brilliant, amazing, inspiring women that I have ever had the honor of being in community with. And her name is Julie Steelman, and I'm going to tell you all about her in a minute. But what I really want you to hear today is this is kind of an important piece, whether your financial security is locked, rocked, and ready to roll, or this is an area that you have continued to struggle with. Guess what? How you do one thing is how you do everything. And in either scenario, it's actually impacting your ability to connect with that high quality, strong man that you so want to have in your life. So let me tell you a little bit about Julie Steelman. Besides being an incredible human, she earned her way out of the corporate world at the young age of 47 by discovering that she had a unique feminine financial intelligence. And she's going to tell us what that means later on today. She learned actually that all women can learn to access it, and she created a new style of feminine earning power. So based on her wildly successful experience, she developed this innovative income amplification system. Who doesn't want that? That allowed her to generate more than $100 million in advertising revenue during the rise and rapid expansion of the internet commerce. So she created this massive success so that she could go live the life that she wanted to live, not the life that was sort of doled out to her. And her adventure has been rich and ripe. And now what she's doing is she has these incredible courses, and they revolutionize a woman's relationship to money that result in them developing a confident self-worth that leads to a robust net worth. How cool is that? So she has got a whole new thing she's doing to help you create financial freedom. She's a certified feminine power coach. She has a master's degree in spiritual psychology. She's got a 25-year career in iconic corporate brand sales. She's the author of a highly praised book for female entrepreneurs called The Effortless Yes, and she created the Effortless Yes selling system. She was my coach for many, many years and helped me create a lot of amazing things in my business. Welcome, Julie, to the podcast.
Hey, Marni. I'm so glad we're in the den together. This is so fun.
It is. And the other thing Julie does is she's a literally amazing, talented, award-winning photographer. And she specializes in wild animals. So this is like my version of a wild animal den.
Well, let's just say the lioness is in the house.
Exactly. Damn. Yes, it is. So we were talking about before we started the show today, just about how money is such a big piece of our feminine, masculine struggle, especially, now, because basically we don't even have any really role models as women because we're pioneers. So let's talk about that. Why do you think women, especially our listeners, single women, are always struggling with having more than enough money? What's going on with that?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked that, especially at this time in this moment. Even in the last 2 weeks, Marni, we've seen, we've got hurricanes, we've got earthquakes, we've got fires, we've got political challenges, we've got sexual predators being called out. And there's there's this thing opening up because we're actually standing toe to toe with evolution. And what that means is that a lot of the structures and stories of the past are actually starting to crumble because we're no longer willing to tolerate certain things. And that can be a little daunting, can be a little scary, but it's also what's required for us to evolve is that the patriarchy and some of these structures start to disintegrate. It's like Mother Nature's saying enough already. And what I think is cool about that is we've never been at a point in history or herstory where women have the opportunities we have today. In most countries, we can vote, we can drive a car, we can make our own money, we can manage our own money, and we can have our own bank accounts. That wasn't so true about 50 years ago. And there's still some countries that need to come up and match that. But let's talk about us. We're Americans for the most part that we're talking to right here today. And I think the thing is that there's an opportunity for us to develop a new feminine empowered way to be with money that doesn't require us to twist ourselves into pretzels and try to be masculine about it and try to be men, try to chase it and try to operate from our ego in regards to money. It's not that that's bad and wrong. It's just that as women and how we're designed, it doesn't honor our feminine inner code. It doesn't align with our values and it doesn't align with our physical structures. And so that becomes something then, if it's overexpressed, that can be intimidating to men in terms of getting into that one loving partnership that you want to be in. Because the way you do money is the way you do love. The way you do love is the way you do money. And so, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking about how, as young women, back in the day, it was like, you get an A, you get you get the good, you get good praise, you get validation. And especially if, whether you were rocking the love thing as a young person in high school or college or whatever it is, what we learn is that the one place where we can get that validation and that esteem is from creating money.
Yeah, right. And I think, so the thing is, when we reference making money from that place, from people pleasing or validation or fitting in or doing it so that men are okay with us in the work world. And I came from corporate. So my whole identity around money got switched while I was at corporate because I was unwilling to compromise my value system and I was unwilling to compromise my adrenals and my body. Again, I am not making men wrong. I love men, no male bashing. We need to empower them while we're being empowered at the same time. But the challenge is why women struggle with having more than enough and why we still get paid less in corporate than men do. One is because we've been colluding in our approach with what that paradigm says you have to do to make money. I'm suggesting if you shift to an inner referencing system, what I call your feminine financial intelligence, that place where you know what your boundaries are and you know your inherent value and worth so deeply that you're willing to express it in relationship to other people. And this is where women really fall down. Is we either dream too small about money or we don't communicate a clear yes and a clear no about what we're willing to accept, what we're not willing to accept, and negotiate as if we owned our value at the highest level like men do.
This is
right?
huge.
Right?
Well, this is huge. So here's like a real life situation where I would love to hear your sort of take on it. So I have a client that we work with. She's a very, very successful physician. She had a pattern of taking crumbs in her life, in her career with men. She totally went in, resolved the man crumb issue. Now she's in this rockin' relationship. And guess what's showing up? She is not making the same sort of strength and powerful moves now with her career. And there's this huge dissonance. And it's like not setting boundaries, having self-doubt. But yet, this has been her thing and she loves her career. So what's going on? Why are women not able to or struggling with being powerful in all areas of their life?
Yeah, because I think really, I mean, this might sound a little airy-fairy, but I think that there's some truth in it, and I don't mean it to sound that way at all. It's in the feminine consciousness that we're the less than species, or that we need to people please. And if we don't people please, we're going to end up alone. So a lot of times in our businesses, that same vibe that we do with men, which is I'll accept less than I really want because I don't want to be alone, we do the same thing in our practices and in our businesses, right? And it's like we get to a place where it's like, I don't want my patients to go to another doctor, or if I raise my prices to what they really should be because I'm tired of this fucking loan I have to pay for, then my patients are going to go away. So there's some fear in there operating that is limiting her flow. It's not about having less success. It's about having more success, but doing it in a way where the energetic of the feminine, which we're so in tune with and so alive with and so good with, can actually come alive. And so somewhere in her practice, she's operating from a fear that's limiting her flow. So money is reacting to the fear instead of her being in relationship with the flow of her business. She shifted on the man side to being in relationship with the man, right?
Yeah,
but
totally.
She hasn't shifted in her business in being in relationship to the flow. Because if she were sourcing it from inside herself versus referencing it outside of whatever her practice should look like, or, whatever her patients want from her, or she perceives they want from her, she's making something up that isn't true because the flow is reflecting back to her that there is a limitation in place.
Totally. I have another client who this is, and I'm just giving these examples.
Was that helpful?
That's so helpful. But what I'm giving these examples because I really, my whole thing here is, that doesn't apply to me, is bullshit. This is every single thing is how does this apply to you? So I have another client who revealed that she had never asked for time off. She's a paralegal. She works with really powerful attorneys and always felt like people pleasing, right? And because she didn't have kids or she didn't have this or she didn't have that, it was okay to always step in, right, for everyone else so they could do their life. Finally, starting to set boundaries in her love life, realizing, okay, now I need to set boundaries in my work life because I don't want to be a people pleaser. So we're all, whether that's the point, whether you are financially secure right now or you're not, how are you out of flow in your femininity and how is it showing up in all these areas of your life? So what's the kind of secret way that we as women can access our power and be in flow when it comes to finances and money?
Yeah, I love that question. And and you can replace that with love or with career, right? Or with my body, right? You can replace that. My bucket just happens to be money. But I think that if we look at feminine financial intelligence, there's sort of three areas where this comes into a harmonic, where the flow can really, really flow like a gushing river with rapids. And that is how we are in relationship to ourselves. And so what I mean by that is we've done a lot of work as women in our society on valuing ourselves. I wouldn't say we're complete with that. I always think there's more work to do. But I think that a lot of us have done work on ourselves in one way or another where we feel a sense of value. And then the second area is in relationship to the universe. If we look at the structures and the stories that are around us in society, everything suggests that there's a limitation. I have a credit limit. I have a shopping limit. I have a budget, right? And those are, I'm not saying those aren't good things. They are good things. But what I'm saying is there's a sensation that we experience the universe is limited. And what I'm here to tell you is that there is more than enough money on the planet for every human being on this planet around the world to have more than enough, right? And so if we can step into experiencing life as a limitlessness and get rid of this idea that I'm limited, I can't, my thing about guys was my thighs are too fat, right? Well, there's a limitation, bullshit, right? And it's like the third area, this is where I think this really comes in, especially in career, is we own our value don't really get that the universe is limitless. And there's a whole process around accepting that. But what if the universe was conspiring on your behalf all the time, always? And you looked at everything like that. The third area where I think the biggest stumbling block is we don't express ourselves in relationship to others in an empowered way that includes our value and their dignity in the same sentence, in the same boundary setting, in the same conversation. And that's where women have been gravely undersupported in how do I do that? How do I tell a guy who makes $10 million a year because he's the CEO of the company that this tactic he wants to put in place doesn't match my value system? And I'm not willing to compromise on that, because when I compromise on my value system, I might make more money, but I'm going to pay for it energetically. Like, who wants that? I can tell you, when you hit 50, you don't want those energetic debts, because they're going to come crashing in really freaking fast. And they're difficult to get through. So just take my word on that. Mm-hmm. But do you understand what I'm saying? It's like you don't know how to negotiate or express yourself in a way that includes your needs in a way that also empowers the other individual to move closer towards something that would work for both of you. Women compromise on this because they don't want to be alone and they want to people please.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think even in my own, career in being an entrepreneur, really chasing what everyone else is doing, it's a very masculine sort of way versus finally like getting into the same process I use to create love in my life. What do I want? What do I need? What's in alignment with my values? In fact, I literally every week I do my little intentions, and I wrote down for this week, show up every day in alignment with your highest value. Which is
love that.
Right? Which is exactly it. Yeah. So Julie, like, let's get specific, right? Like you were that one. Go ahead.
Your intention and speak it in an empowered way.
In everything that we do. Everything that we do. So you were in corporate, and you shared that, like, here you are, you have opportunities to, hit these home runs and kind of follow along with the system, and it's out of integrity with your values. So if there's somebody right now who's like, wow, this is totally a pattern and I want to get back into flow, what's the process one goes through, or any kind of strategy they can think about right now to start to just make that slight imperceptible shift towards changing how they show up in their more feminine intelligence?
I think one of the first things that you can do is you got to be willing. You got to be willing to say, because what I will tell you is a woman in corporate who is inner referenced instead of outer referenced and people pleasing is much more powerful than any man who's in his highest power in any corporation, because it's about operating through grace and instead of force. And it's about having a type of presence. And that type of presence come from sourcing from your feminine financial intelligence, which is an inner gauge and an inner reference point. And some of the things that you got to do is start to look at how you hold and value money and value yourself. And you can have boundaries without being a bitch. Like, Marni, we should do a whole show on that, right? Boundaries without being a bitch.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about it just for a second, because this is one of my pet peeves, right? And this happened to me along my journey, is that and here's the other interesting thing, even with other women, because of the messaging, when a woman holds a boundary, men will say she's a bitch. And I got to say, I think some women will say we're being a bitch.
Yep.
But we're holding a boundary. So what's that about? And how can we change it? Because I hate that.
I know. Well, I think people are always going to react with their stuff, and you have to just hold infinite, unbearable compassion. And it's not about you. It's about them. And just when you can hold that space of compassion explain yourself. Like, why are we so quiet? Why are we so unwilling to not call a thing a thing? Say, I really understand that your board of directors wants us to move into this kind of a sales mode. I got to tell you, I'm not my most productive doing it that way. But if you would allow me to just make a little tweak and let me do it this way, I promise you that I'll meet the goal that you set for me. And I won't compromise anything that you're doing. I won't undermine anything that you're doing, but I'll be in my highest power. I'll get my biggest result. And that's really what you want from me, isn't it? I mean, like, call a thing. Start having those conversations. Stop treating people like they have this leverage over you to cut your neck off if you ask for something out of the ordinary. But put it in the context of, what does that person want and need? And how do I help them get their needs met while I help myself get my needs met, and open up the conversation and start dialoguing about it. And somebody might totally shut you down, in which case, you find another way around it that doesn't undermine anybody. And there's plenty of invisible ways to do that. And I think part of it is how you hold, I call them, pillars of feminine financial intelligence, or prosperity postures, which is this way that you hold yourself, which I think the first one is that you see money and career as a sacred resource to be harvested and cherished. And when you operate from that, you start to find the languaging to have these conversations where your value shows up in relationship to other people. Does that make sense?
It totally makes up. And that is just that one thing, right, is a total mind-blowing shift. Because when we are in our masculine, money is not...
We're chasing it.
Yeah.
And we're taking it.
Yeah. It's not like harvest and cherish. No. It's like, if I don't have this, I am not safe. More. Or, which I want to talk about also, if I have more, then I have more value.
Right. Well, but see, here's the deal about that. You can set that up. You can set that belief system up inside of you if you want to. However, you're on very shaky ground. That money can go, you can get involved with the Bernie Madoff. I mean, like, there's so many things, right, that can go wrong. Your house can burn to the ground. We know a lot of people around us who that's happened to, and they were in their pajamas, and that's it. They got their cat and their pajamas and their car keys. That's it. And that's a very real reality right now. Everything can go away. But if you set your structure up on, like I was telling you, this came in my meditation this morning, which I thought was so fascinating because it was true about me. I got into sales and selling, and because I was like, I'm going to go get me some money. I'm going to go chase it. I'm going to go chase it faster than the guy next to me because I can outrun him, and I'm like going to get involved in that whole, the way the current paradigm is set up. But women don't energetically work very well that way. Or we can work to a point, we get fried, we get burnt out. We obliterate our relationships. Our life falls apart. There was a time in my life when I sat in my condo in Redondo Beach with an ocean view and a Mercedes and 2 cats, and that's it. I had my job at Microsoft, and that's it. But the problem is God, I got lost. Ask me the question again. I'm sorry. I get crazy about this because I get excited.
No, we're talking about like your self-worth, and it's not a long-term proposition because like in the end, like it's literally like the glass castle, right? Like, yeah, you've got your condo and you've got your car. And this is the thing, like I get passionate about it too because I talk to women and they're like, my life is good. My life is awesome. I have my friends. I have my car. I don't need no stinking man, da la 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 la.
Right.
And then like, so what? So you're so unfulfilled. And what I hear you saying, which I want everyone to freaking highlight, underline, rewind, listen again, is you're not in your authentic feminine intelligence. You're not in your power. You are literally, it's like you are literally living with like 1/10 of your total power and full expression on the planet when you operate that way.
Right. And here's the thing. Here's what I was trying to say, and I got all caught up in my own like, but, is you're going to hit a financial glass ceiling. I don't care if you make $5 million and you did it this way, where you let money define your worth, you're going to hit a financial glass ceiling. And if you want to make 20 million, you can't get there this way, right? because for women and for the feminine, which our body energetically flows with the feminine, we're working against our own intelligence and our own energetic flow. That can only last for so long, and we hit a financial glass ceiling. But the way to go past it is to understand that, and this is what came to me in the meditation I was trying to get to, is that I got into the sales and selling stuff because I thought money defined my self-worth. But what I came to realize through my feminine financial intelligence is that my self-worth defines my relationship to money. And when I do it that way, there's no glass ceiling, there's no stopping me, and I'm in my power, and I'm working with my energy instead of against my energy. And that changes everything. And then if you're a wealthy woman and you meet this really cool guy, he's not going to be intimidated by your money, because if you're playing the ego game, then your egos are getting in a power struggle, and that's going to show up right away in your relationship. If you're playing the money game the feminine way, it's all of a sudden something that's really cool about you and something that's very graceful, and it's very easy for a man to digest. And the way that you communicate isn't emasculating. The way that you communicate is empowering. It's like, I don't need you for money, but if you want to pay for our trip to Africa together, I'd be more than happy to receive that because I love you. Like, that's totally different than, I want you in my life, but fuck no, you're not paying for my trip. I don't need you. Communicating like that, if we're in the ego space, we're in the I'm going to do it my way space, we're out of flow. Then our communication comes off like that emasculating stuff. Even if the words are nice, men, they can smell that. So I feel like there's just this real, and even in married couples, some of the challenges are money related.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And so here's what I really want to dive into for the last little bit of our conversation today is that, so I hear that a lot from you all listening, that, men are intimidated by me because I'm successful, because I'm smart, because I'm worldly. So if that's their story, right? I feel like what you just said is a big, giant, like, hello, neon sign, because it doesn't matter that you are successful and you have it all. You're not in the flow. And then you've created this limit on overall abundance, on having it all.
Well, here's what I think happens in this energetic, and tell me if you agree with this or not. Because this is energetic, right? What you just asked about.
Yep.
It's not that you have money or that you're successful. Because ladies, don't start compromising and minimizing your impact and saying, well, I don't really want that raise because it's going to intimidate my boyfriend, because I'm going to call you out right now. You've now been implicated. Okay. You don't get to do that. It's the way you're being with it. Because if you're being chasey and aggressive and letting your career and the money define your worth, then you're going to protect that at all costs. And so what happens when a guy shows up? All of a sudden, you're going to get defensive and protective about this. And so you're going to enter into this dynamic, and they're going to feel emasculated because you're not allowing them in. That's what happens.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so what's the
fix?
Well, first of all, the aha, and then the fix. The aha is, here I've been thinking like, I don't need no stinking man because I got it all.
Yeah.
It's impacting not only your ability to be in your feminine to actually attract the man that you want. And what Julie's also saying is, and actually you're also putting a limit on your financial success as well. So don't kid yourself, kiddos, right? Is that kind of right? Because here's the flaw is then you are like, you're telling yourself, the story you're telling yourself is, I don't need a guy really because I have this success and I work really hard and my career is great and my friends are great. But if you are a woman who's listening to this podcast, you're here because you want to be the fullest expression of yourself in every single part of your life. So guess what? Not only are you not attracting the relationship you want intimately, right? But you're also actually totally limiting your ability to have abundance financially.
I couldn't agree with that more. It has everything to do with how you hold it and how you express it. And I would also suggest that if you have the story that men will be intimidated by your success or your wealth, you might be picking men that don't match you where you're at.
So how can you be more in your feminine financial intelligence so that you can have love, abundance, financial security, like really truly a fully open-hearted expression of yourself in this world?
I think it has everything to do with being willing to receive. And we don't need men for money, but we could still use them for love. And there's a part of life that has a richer context to it with love in our life that uplifts and up levels and amplifies everything. So I might not need you to pay my bills, but I need you in my life because then I become a whole expression. Because if what we're really talking about here is self-actualization, right?
Yeah.
And rising to our highest potential, which will give us our highest expression. Money is one of the areas women need to self-actualize in. And so is relationship. They're probably the two top areas. And it's about we move into, when we access feminine financial intelligence, about taking a step back. It's about not chasing anything. And here's the myth buster. If you're doing that, you're still operating with this whole cliche that says it's better to give than receive, because I'm out to bust that. It's bullshit. Okay. It's better to give and receive, because if it's better to give than receive, you're not going to let love in your life, because all men want is a place to be received. That's all they really want. And we need a place to give. And so when we can step into that different kind of a mindset, it actually creates a paradigm shift in the context of how we relate to people at work, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to money, and how we relate to our loved ones. Totally shifts when we can say it's better to give and receive. That's the first place to start. The second thing is to know that money is a sacred resource. So is your career. So is love, to be harvested and cherished, and to tell yourself that every day and let that inform how you act and how you speak.
I'm like, just like my eyes are closed. I'm like, sing it in the church of Julie Steelman. Okay.
Can I get a hallelujah?
Yes. I'm like, cherish, harvest. Oh my God. And it's like the fall season. Okay. So before we wrap up, if you were going to define, so someone could say, like, when you talk about feminine financial intelligence, if you were going to have like an ability to start to define it and begin to recognize it in ourselves, what are we looking for?
So what you're looking for is, like, if you're an intuitive person, you might understand what this means. If you breathe and you take your energy all the way down into the center of your hips, it's the seat of the feminine power center. In that space, you're listening with your inner eyes and your inner ears to what people are saying to you, what clients are saying to you, and you take it, run it through that power center. You're going to get an intuitive response. And if you listen inwardly, and it typically flows up, even if you take a pause and buy time and go, let me think about that for a second before I give you an answer. You can always do that. Or can I get back to you about that? You can always buy yourself a little bit of time, run it through that system, and then let it open your heart and run it through your heart. And then you're going to come up with a way to respond or be that has everything to do with the femininity being engaged, right? If it comes down from your head, from your eyebrows, and falls down into your throat, it's a body check. If it falls down into your throat, there's a good chance it came from your brain and it's reactive, right?
Yeah.
We want to go, wait, that needs a 5-minute, let me ruminate on it thing. If it flows up, it's like an energy that flows up, and you'll feel this opening happening. That will be loaded with information about how to respond and react if you listen inwardly.
Wow. That's brilliant.
From there.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So referencing it from that place and taking a pause.
Yep.
And being, which is, again, that harvesting and cherishing is the opposite of chasing. Brilliant. Correct. I love it. Julie, I love you. You are so feminine and beautiful and delicious. Ladies, you definitely want to go in the show notes and grab Julie's 10 pillars of feminine financial intelligence and really start to dive into this. It's in the show notes. If you don't have those handy, you can go to juliesteelman.com and get them. I love this conversation. I think it is a huge myth buster for women who feel like because they got this one thing, it's not impacting their other thing, and that it's all totally connected and it's totally about femininity and authenticity. So I'm definitely having you back in the den. I
can't wait.
I love it. Well, we have so much to talk about in this topic. Ladies, go to the show notes. Go to juliesteelman.com. You definitely, if you resonated with any of this, you need to learn those 10 pillars of feminine financial intelligence. And I know that you did, because that's why you're here. So thank you, Julie. And ladies, hey, don't forget, when you're out there, date with dignity. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.